Good afternoon. It's Monday, May 6th. I'm Herman Green with the Midday News. For those of you watching online at onespotmedia.com, a very special welcome to you. Corporal Kirk Fraser, the policeman at the center of the recent fatal Spanish Town shooting, is now in custody. He surrendered to the police in the company of his attorney, Valerie Nita Robertson, last night. Fraser was being sought in connection with the shooting death of Sheldon Jr. Biggs Daly in the parking lot of the Chedwin Park Cricket Ground in St. Catherine on April 28. Now, Corporal Fraser is said to be one of the cops who carried out the alleged hit on Mr. Daly. However, in a recent interview with TVJ News, he denied those allegations. Despite turning himself in to the police, Corporal Fraser says he fears the outcome because of what he calls the negative news that's been circulating in the media since the shootings. He says he's more worried about the negativity in the news about the incident and the implications for himself, his family, and his colleagues. And while Jamaica awaits further information on the government's plans to disband the Mobile Reserve, one security consultant is weighing in on the matter. He believes the JCF's Mobile Reserve has lost sight of its original vision. Since the announcement that the Jamaica Constabulary Force's Mobile Reserve is to be disbanded, questions have been raised about the government's reason for taking such drastic action. But security consultant Robert Finzi-Smith believes the Mobile Reserve has not been focusing on what it was originally created to do. He referred to the institution's original mandate, which was to act as Jamaica's SWAT team for special assignments involving security threats. Mr. Smith says over the years, they have been engaging in other ventures.
There have been rumors of senior officers utilizing the skills and capabilities of the personnel to do almost high-level security. Like you would want a construction site and a man come and say more money, and you can't handle him, you just put 2 Mobile Reserve men and nobody will come back.
Mr. Smith thinks the government has been planning to disband the Mobile Reserve for a long time. The security consultant is convinced that the incident last week Sunday involving off-duty officers of the Mobile Reserve gave the government the opportunity they had been waiting for. He is, however, concerned about plans for a replacement for the Mobile Reserve.
At a time when you're putting in states of emergencies in various places and SOZOs and things.
And the security minister says we are at war.
Yes. You don't take one of your more talented members of your unit and disband them. The next thing is, what you doing with the personnel? Because you now have an area that's concentrated. And if you say you have some bad eggs in this basket, what you going to do? Take out all the eggs and spread them around the country?
Mr. Smith was speaking. Head of the National Integrity Action, NIA, Professor Trevor Monroe, is urging the government to be fair to members of the force and all other parties involved as it moves forward with plans to disband the Mobile Reserve. The NIA head reasons that disbanding the unit is the right move as the police force is in need of positive change.
We must commend the government for finally taking steps to transform the police force, beginning with the winding up of Mobile Reserve. At the same time, as we urge that this process be carried forward on the basis of a broad national consensus, and that this be carried forward with full regard to due process and to fair play.
Last week, National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang announced that the Mobile Reserve would be disbanded. The measure followed intense public outcry after corporals attached to the unit were allegedly linked to the murder of a man at a party at Chedwin Park in St. Catherine. And the NIA head is reminding the authorities that the Jamaican people are waiting to see action on the corruption unearthed at Petrojam. The former leadership of the state-owned oil refinery was found to have broken rules, including how they hired. Additionally, billions of dollars worth of fuel could not be accounted for. It was unearthed by a report done by the Auditor General. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has ordered a forensic audit into the entity's operations, but Professor Monroe suggests that the longer Jamaica waits for accountability and answers, the more residents lose faith in the government.
Accused by none less than the Auditor General of lawless and improper conduct stretching over more than 10 years across successive administrations. Yet, to the continuing distress of the public, not one of those involved in these alleged acts of misconduct have had to make restitution of the hundreds of millions of dollars lost to the public purse, nor have been charged, nor prosecuted, nor found guilty, much less sent to jail.
Professor Monroe is also demanding that the public be provided with information from the investigations into former Education Minister Ruel Reid's firing. And the Energy Ministry says it has received a small number of responses to the draft terms of reference to be used for the forensic audits into the massive oil losses at Petrojam. Concerns had been raised about a possible conflict of interest after revelations that the Petrojam management team had drafted the terms of reference for the project. It was later announced that a revised draft document would be published for public scrutiny and feedback. Permanent Secretary in the Energy Ministry, Carol Palmer, told our news center only 4 responses were received in over a month.
So that has been put together and we've sent it off to the Auditor General. Based on the level of public interest, we thought we would have had more responses, but we didn't set a target. We were prepared to accept all responses and send it in.
April 30 was the deadline for feedback. Prime Minister Andrew Holness ordered the audit following revelations that Petrojam was unable to account for over 600,000 barrels of oil worth more than $5 billion over a 5-year period. Overlooked member of the People's National Party, Andrea Moore, says even though she is not the PNP's flag bearer for Eastern Portland, she will continue to lobby for or on behalf of the people. Mrs. Moore was overlooked by the party's hierarchy to contest the 2016 general election despite winning an internal runoff against the late Dr. Linville Bloomfield. She was again asked to step aside to allow Damian Crawford to contest a by-election in April against the eventual winner, the JLP's Anne-Marie Vaz. Mr. Crawford, despite the defeat, has been given the nod to contest the seat in future elections by the party. When asked if she is disappointed at being constantly overlooked by the PNP, she said she is at peace with the party's decision. Mrs. Moore said as a businesswoman in the constituency, her focus is to ensure Mrs. Vaz stays true to her election promises.
In relation to the current Member of Parliament and the new Member of Parliament, Mrs. Vaz, we recognize that the commitments made prior to the election will certainly have to be honored because the people deserve good representation, and that was the platform on which she campaigned. So we have every intention to have her fulfill those commitments. I recognize only recently that persons have been complaining that there's no water at a health center, and we're expecting that as the new representative who have given so many commitments to the people as to what she's capable of, we will be ensuring that those commitments are honored because the people of East Portland, as I indicated, deserve good representation.
The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, says it is strengthening its response systems to deal with tsunami should they strike Jamaica. The last major tsunami warning in the country was in Old Harbour, St. Catherine in 2017, but luckily the threat did not materialize. The Director General of ODPEM, Richard Thompson, said since then, steps have been taken to keep Old Harbour residents sharp as it remains one of the more at-risk areas. He, however, pointed out that because Jamaica is a small island, other areas are prone to this disaster.
If we should have a tsunami impact in, say, the Kingston area, the waters can come as far afield as probably Crossroad and beyond, depending on the speed of the waves. It's not to say that person should be totally scared, but it's to ensure that preparedness measures are in place. We have done some work where there is a tsunami warning siren in Old Harbour Bay. That we had a project, and we have one of the first tsunami warning system in the country, and it is in Old Harbour Bay. And Old Harbour Bay is a model community. We have had a lot of drills, and they take it very serious.
Mr. Thompson was speaking at a recent meeting with the municipal corporations about disaster preparedness in their respective parishes. The Atlantic hurricane season starts in a few weeks on June 1. The British High Commissioner to Jamaica is criticizing the government for not leveraging the country's brand. He says while Jamaica fails to take advantage of its international popularity, other countries are using the brand and are reaping significant benefits. TVJ's Andrew Laidley reports.
Sourced in Jamaica. That's one of the labels you may be able to find on products in the UK. Others include Jamaican styled or made in Jamaica. But British High Commissioner to Jamaica Asif Ahmad says some of these products have no actual link to Jamaica. He says other countries use these labels because they recognize the power of brand Jamaica. Mr. Ahmad argues that those imitators tend to use the brand more aggressively than the Jamaican government does.
If you go up and down and you see produce, sometimes it says sourced from Jamaica when it actually was brought in from Ghana. They trade on the name of Jamaica. If people want plantain and processed food and they don't want to lie because it's difficult to lie when it's in a packet, they say Jamaica-styled plantain chips.
He says there are markets in the United Kingdom that small businesses can tap into to reap significant benefits.
I think there's a huge opportunity for Jamaican small businesses to access markets like the UK. And I have a commitment from Butch Hendrickson of National Bakery that he will help set up a logistics chain for small-scale businesses in Jamaica to sell to North America and to the UK. But you and people like you need to make it happen.
Mr. Ahmad pointed out that there are special exemptions for Jamaican trade with the European Union, which is still not being fully exploited.
Jamaica hardly uses it at all. You have tax-free access to the EU, which is not being used. Grace Kennedy uses it, National Bakeries uses it, and that's about it. The good news is that if we end up leaving the EU, we have already completed and signed an agreement with the Caribbean that whatever deal you have with the EU will continue when we go into the future.
The Jamaica Promotions Corporation, JAMPRO, is the principal government agency responsible for promoting and safeguarding Jamaica's brand internationally. However, in the past, JAMPRO has said that economic opportunities continue to escape the country's grasp. The agency admitted that there's very little it can do to halt it because of limited resources. Andrew Laidley, TVJ News.
A pedal cyclist had a close brush with death about 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon along the Old Harbour Main Road in St. Andrew. Sheldon Moffat explained that he was going about his business and rode past just as a cement truck tore down a power line which was allegedly hanging low. He said he almost got burnt.
All of someone say you pay cash in and we realize the truck lit down the wire, and by the time if you turn around now, we realize the wire drop right beside me. I have to jump off a bicycle and run like thief, me I tell you, General. My bicycle, everything burn up.
And of course, that's Old Harbour Road in St. Catherine. Now, the fire brigade was called after the wires caught fire. They got things under control shortly afterwards. In news overseas, 23 people have died in Gaza as a result of the fighting between Israel and Gaza militants since Saturday. We go to the CNN for more.
Well, we know there are efforts to try to restore some sort of ceasefire between Israel and Gaza, those efforts on the part of Egypt and the United Nations, but so far those efforts have not at all been fruitful. Just in the last few minutes here, there has been a major barrage of rockets coming out of Gaza into Israel, and more powerful rockets than the short-range rockets that just target the Gaza periphery near where we're standing right now. Those rockets targeting Beersheba, one of the largest cities in southern Israel, as well as Ashkelon, and for the first time since the end of the 2014 war, so for the first time in some 5 years, a red alert sounded in the city of Arad in southern Israel. That more than 40 miles away from Gaza, indicating a much more powerful, much longer range rocket used. So the escalation we saw that began on Saturday morning is very much continuing. To this point, the Israeli military says more than 430 rockets have been fired at Israel, a number of injuries, as well as an Israeli killed in the city of Ashkelon. That marks the first Israeli killed by Gaza rocket fire again since the end of the 2014 war. A Palestinian was actually killed by rocket fire last November, so that means 2 people in Israel have been killed by rocket fire now since the end of the 2014 war. Meanwhile, Israel has carried out a wave of airstrikes across Gaza, hitting more than 200 targets they say belong to Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The Palestinian Ministry of Health says 6 Gazans have been killed in those strikes, including a 1-year-old baby girl as well as a pregnant mother. Now, Israel disputes that, saying it wasn't an airstrike that killed those 2. Instead, it was a malfunctioning Hamas rocket. Regardless, the situation remains tense and it continues to escalate.
We go down to news in sports. A world record opening stand between Jamaica's John Campbell and Barbadian Shea Hope carried the West Indies to a huge 196 runs in the opening match of the Tri-Nation One-Day International Series against host Ireland in Dublin. Sent into bat, the West Indies posted their second highest ever ODI total of 381 for 3. Campbell cracked his maiden ODI to hit 179 of 137 balls, including 15 fours and 6 sixes, while Hope blasted his highest score, 170 of 152 balls. Now, this included 22 fours and 2 sixes. The two shared in the highest ever opening partnership in ODI history, posting 365 runs. This was only 7 runs short of the record for the highest ODI partnership for any wicket. That's 372, a record held by another West Indies pair, Jamaica's Chris Gale and Marlon Samuels. Meanwhile, Darren Bravo ended on 9 not out, while captain Jason Holder made 1. Barry McCarthy took 2 for 76 for the Irish. The West Indies score of 381 for 3 was also their second highest ODI total, 8 short of the 389 they posted against England in their 4th ODI at home in February. In reply, Ireland were bowled out for 185 in 34.4 overs. Now, Ashley Nurse bagged a career best 4 for 51, while Shannon Gabriel took 3 for 44. Kemar Roach 2 for 28, and Jamaica's Sheldon Cottrell 1 for 33. The West Indies will next be in action on Tuesday against Bangladesh, the 3rd team involved in the series. And that's the midday news. I'm Herman Green. Remember, the primetime news package is at 7. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, good afternoon.